Hi there, it's Emma and welcome to Sax Bites, the 5-minute saxophone lesson podcast. Today I'm talking about something that came up in a lesson and my student had a really great question for me. She had been practicing a lot, and was getting very, very tired through the embouchure and was finding that she had air leaking out the corners of her mouth. And her very good question was, how on earth am I going to stop this from happening? So there's 2 reasons why you could have air leaking out the side of your mouth. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, it's when you hear saxophone players have that kind of hissing sound that's happening while they're playing. It's literally an air leak. It's air escaping from the corners of their mouth out the side, out into the open, instead of the air going into the mouthpiece. It's happened to most players, happens to a lot of beginners, and it does happen when our embouchure gets tired. So there's 2 real reasons why this can happen. I'm going to tackle the one that happened to my student first. She was tired, the muscles in the embouchure were very fatigued, and they were not able to keep a good seal around the mouthpiece. So when we play the saxophone, it's really important to keep firm corners of your mouth. Now, I am talking about a standard saxophone embouchure here. If you're getting other advice from your teacher, particularly around different jazz embouchures, go with your teacher, that's cool. But a standard saxophone embouchure for the best possible tone, control, and intonation are going to want to have very firm corners. In fact, the corners of the mouth can be the key to unlocking the perfect shape and getting a great sound. Because when the corners of our mouths are pushing in to create a very rounded O shape around the mouthpiece, we're releasing a little bit of that kind of vertical pressure from the top teeth coming down and the bottom jaw pushing up from the chin. Instead, the pressure is going in on the sides of the mouthpiece, I don't know why I said mouthpieces, sides of the mouthpiece, and it allows us to create a rounded supported shape where the reed can vibrate freely and vibrate at its best possible capacity. Now, if you're practicing a lot, those are muscles that are going to get tired very quickly. They're very small muscles in the face. They are not really getting workouts in any other activity. So at that point, it's probably actually best to take a break, let those muscles reset, and come back to your practice after a couple of hours or the next day in order to build up that strength. Embouchure strength takes time to build. But there is another reason why this could be happening. Some players, when they develop the habit or the ritual of their embouchure, don't actually create firm corners of the mouth. They're not pushing those corners of their mouths inwards. In fact, they've got a very flat shape, a very pulled back shape. Happens a lot to clarinet players that transition to saxophone and keep a very flat embouchure shape. And when that happens, they can habitually have that leaking of air. The corners of the mouth are not doing what we need them to do for saxophone, and it's happening all the time. In those cases, it becomes really important to develop a practice routine that helps you to build your embouchure. If you've never had to redo or relearn an embouchure before, you are very lucky because it is one of the hardest things to do on saxophone or really learning any wind and brass instrument. It happens quite a lot I've seen at the university level where students come in and they're otherwise doing really well, but they have an embouchure problem such as this. They don't have firm corners of the lips, and they spend a lot of their practice time, all their time, fixing their embouchure, relearning their embouchure, because it becomes such a habit. It becomes so ingrained in the way we play. So if you are one of those people listening to this, you're thinking, yes, I always get the leaky air. Something needs to be changing in my embouchure. Go in front of a mirror in small practice chunks. Do some long tones, do some simple scales, do some very easy songs where you don't need to think about the fingers or the rhythm, just things that you love, fun music, and practice that rounded shape. Because more than anything with the saxophone embouchure, we want firm corners of the lips. Really, 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 really crucial. And just as a last little tidbit to leave you with, if you want to check you're doing it correctly, try playing with your top teeth not touching the top of the mouthpiece, just resting a couple of millimeters above the top of the mouthpiece. Because if you have a firm, rounded, perfect saxophone shape, you should be able to do that without it affecting the tone quality of your instrument. But that's an explanation and an episode for another time. So for now, get practicing, check those firm corners. If you find you're leaking after exhausting practice sessions, take a break. And this has been Sax Bites, the 5-minute saxophone lesson podcast. Bye-bye.